Hi, this is Alcan. Welcome back to my channel. Well, we have an interesting story from Bloomberg. You know, I'm not a big fan of the guy, but it talks about the situation. Even though we had congestion pricing now in effect, it's may deter people from coming into the city, not because of the pricing of the $9, but because of the crime problem that's happening on the subway, which the congestion price is supposed to help. And some politicians are trying to do what they can to take the mentally ill out of the subway and put them in healthcare facilities, but they need more authority to do that. What else is new? Anyway, this is from Bloomberg. It says New York City subway violence deterred drive to bring workers back to the office. It says violence comes as MTA starts congestion pricing to boost rides. Hocho and Adams call for more authority to commit the mentally ill. By Nacha Cat 10. All right. New Yorkers are having an unsettling start to 2025. Several violent incidents in recent days, including on the subway, are deepening the sense that the chaos and disorder are gripping the city and undermining public safety. They help make 2024 one of the most dangerous years on record for commuters. At a time when the biggest U.S. city is still working to rebound fully from the pandemic. Office buildings have been drained of workers. Vacancy stands at near 20%, and weekday ridership on the city buses and subways are below pre-COVID levels. That's a big concern for business leaders who say their workers are fearful. The MTA, my former employer, is going to have to spend more to improve safety on trains, saying Kathleen Weiler, who runs a partnership in New York City, and I hope I pronounce it correctly, a business group composed of the city's largest companies, including JP Morgan Chase and Company and Goldman Sachs. Oh, yeah, and we had two governors from Goldman Sachs there. Those are extraordinary burdens on the NTA, but they really don't have a choice because literally this is the top priority of employees, she said. The cash-strapped MTA, the state-controlled agency that runs cities, subways, and buses and commuter railroads, is trying to encourage people to use mass transit by charging drivers entering Manhattan's central business district. But if people don't feel safe, the agency risks losing more riders, not gaining. So on Monday, the first weekday of congestion pricing program, NTA Chairman Jano Lieberman, and I don't care if I pronounce it correctly, by the way, told Bloomberg Radio that the agency is accelerating a program to install barriers on the edge of subway platforms. You know, they've been asking for this since January 3rd, 1999, after Kendra Weltdale was pushed in front of an oncoming train by a mentally ill person. And they dragged their feet for a long time until Michelle Go was killed by another mentally ill person a few years ago. Currently, only 14 stations out of a total of 400 had the platform barriers, according to the MTA. The program started a year ago. Letterman acknowledged that riders are growing more uneasy. There's no question that some of these high-profile incidents, terrible attacks, has gotten into the people's head and made the whole system feel less unsafe, he said. Of course, on New Year's Eve, in the heart of Manhattan, a man suffered a broken skull and ribs, as well as ruptured spring after he was shoved off a subway platform, into the path of an oncoming train, on one train at 18th Street. A 23-year-old with a history of arrests for assaults, possession of weapons, and harassment was charged with the incident. A day later, one person was repeatedly stabbed on a subway platform in Morningside Heights. Another was slashed on the number 2 train, and the third was knifed earlier the next morning. All that follows an incident a few weeks prior that captured the international attention when an undocumented migrant allegedly set fire to a woman, Debran Kimwat, sleeping on a train near Coney Island. She was dead of her wounds. She was burned alive. They couldn't help her because the fire extinguishers were nowhere near the train. All that follows an incident a few weeks prior would have catch your international attention. Yes, we already said that. The latest incident of violence that marked New York City throughout 2024 and made the public increasingly fearful. Mayor Eric Adams and Governor Kathy Hochul, tone deaf, and the squirrel killer, I may add, had made numerous efforts to bring down subway crime, but nothing seemed to be making a difference. Not more cops, not cameras in the cars or bag checks, not even deploying the National Guard. I mean, it seemed to get worse every time they deploy extra rules. Even with all those measures, 2024 still turned out to be one of the most dangerous years for subway riders in at least several decades, according to government data compiled by policy research group Vita City at Columbia Law School. Felony assaults hit 573 in 2024, the most since 1997, according to New York Police Department data. There were also 10 murders on the subway, double the figure from the previous year. Some lawmakers blame the violence on the city policy towards people with illness and what they say is inadequate criminal justice system that often tosses repeat offenders back on the streets. And one of these officials is, of course, DA Alan Braggs of Manhattan, who's more interested in putting Trump in jail than putting real criminals in jail. And Daniel Penny in jail. And a bodega worker who defended himself from an irate person over a 50-cent bag of chips in jail. But does he want to put real criminals in jail? No, not him. He's more interested in getting his next fish meal because it looks like a damn Empire penguin. So how many more random slashings, stabbings, and shovings must be perpetrated against innocent New Yorkers before the state of New York gives the mayor the authority he needs to relocate dangerous people from the streets and subway, says U.S. Representative Richie Torres, a moderate Boston Democrat, said on X. Hochul and Adams respond to the spat of New Year's violence with pledges to seek legislation that will grant more power to the authorities to commit people with severe mental illness to the hospitals and keep them there, even against their will. We have a candor law. Why is it not being followed? That's why I'd say. Many of these horrible incidents have involved people with serious untreated mental illness. Hochul said on Friday, we have a duty to protect the public from random acts of violence, and the only fair compensate thing we can do is to get our fellow New Yorkers the help they need. I mean, the day the woman was being burnt alive on that train, Kathy Hochul was on a train getting follow-ups, claimed that she was going to the Queen Center Mall to get some last-minute Christmas shopping. Of course, she's running around with armed security on the subway, which we do not have, neither passengers or employees. And of course, with congestion pricing, it'll probably increase the assaults on both employees and passengers. What the city really needs is far better coordination to make efforts stick, says Elizabeth Glazer, the founder of Vital City, who is also a former director of the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice under former Mayor Bill de Blasio, who's also contributing to the problems of New York City. He put these judges in place that keep letting the criminals out. But we're not letting Alan Braggs off the hook. Oh, no. Assaults had been skyrocketing, said Glazer, the former federal prosecutor. You had city cops, you had National Guardmen, you had NTA cops, you have critical side nonprofits, you had the state funding thing, you had the city funding thing. But who is going where and when? It's more confusing than Justin Trudeau's administration. I wish it was funny. Crime on the subway as a percentage of rides is still extremely rare, Glazer said, attributing to the uptake and part of the economy and emotional strains from the pandemic. But the weekday ridership still is about 20% less than before the COVID. Each incident becomes that more vulnerable. I mean, I've been a victim of subway crime myself, so and that uniform don't help. You might as well put a sign on the uniform that says "Kick me and assault me" because that's what it's good for. A citywide surge in homelessness has complicated conditions on the subway. Some homeless people, we're not using that term unhoused because that's ridiculous, have not only been blamed for the violence but also become the most vulnerable victims. The subway is a daytime and nighttime place for the last resort for New Yorkers who don't have anywhere else to go, especially when it's cold or hot outside. To Daniel Pearlstein, Policy and Communication Director of Writers Alliance, an advocacy group, we need investments that address these crises. Well, one reason why you don't have room is because you have all these illegal migrants in the city of New York that's hogging up all these spaces for them, and they need to be removed as soon as possible. And they contribute to the crime problem too. Remember, it was an illegal alien that set a homeless woman on fire on the subway. So Samantha Moscato, a pediatric occupation therapist at the hospital in Manhattan, says that when she rides the subway, she stands up against a post far from the platform so she can't be easily pushed. Her unease, she says, has gotten worse than to when she rode the train alone to work during COVID. I used to do a lot more reading on the subway, she says. With assistance from Sir Taylor and Alicia or Alison Clutton. But the fact is, yes, I've been victimized of subway crime. That uniform don't not help. I mean, it's not, they don't even respect police. And the National Guard may be upstairs, but they're not downstairs patrolling with their weapons. They could have more weapons, but Kathy Hochul doesn't want them there. She wants all the weapons for her protection, but not anybody else. I mean, this woman is tone deaf, don't care. I mean, she hadn't even explained what happened to Peanut the squirrel and Fred the raccoon a while back before the election, and that might have helped Trump win his second term over Kamala. And I know you're saying, "Oh, that's kind of ridiculous," but hey, stuff happens. But this is not stuff happened down here on the subway. People should not be burned to death on a train for no good reason, or pushed in front of a train, and all the other crime problems or stabbings or muggings or a lot of the stuff is up, even though crime is down, but it's not down on the subway completely. So there has to be something done to take care of this situation. And as long as you're having these crime issues happening, people are not going to stop using their cars to get into the city. I mean, they don't like the idea they have to pay $9, but or more if you don't have an easy pass. I just found that out. So, no. As long as you have a crime problem, people are not going to be riding the trains. And by the way, it's not just the subway. Even Metro North had an incident. Somebody got stabbed over loud music. So, this is something that has to be done. You have to stop the criminality. You have to enforce the laws. You have to stop the fare beaters. And you have to stop the people who are committing these crimes on the subway and the rest of mass transit. You need to put the people who are mentally ill causing these problems in an institution so they cannot reoffend. But as long as you have people like Alan Braggs and Kathy Hochul continuing these dangerous policies, this is going to continue to go on. And we're not even sure congestion pricing is going to bring in that money that they claim. Because if people start coming into the city because of the crime and the $9, they're not going to go below 60th Street and do business there. They got other places up about 60th Street they could do business and screw Lower Manhattan, which they don't need. And plus, it's affecting the firefighters already because they gotta move the equipment around with their personal cards, and then they getting charged $9, which is ridiculous. The fire people are complaining. They should have had vans out there for them to move the equipment around. I mean, you can't put all your firefighting equipment on and ride a bicycle. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous. Oh, by the way, bicycles are the only ones that are not getting charged the congestion pricing fees. Even motorcycles are getting charged. So this is how I'm saying so long for now, and don't forget your stop.